Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello, everybody at home, and welcome to Houselights, House of Tim Burton. We are discussing the 1999 movie Sleepy Hollow. This is the last Tim Burton film of the 1990s that we'll be discussing on Houselights, and you guys are in for quite a treat. And what is a treat for me every single week is hosting with these two gentlemen, Darren Moser and John Mills. Darren, Dr. Sci-Fi himself, how are you doing?
Doing well. I turned on all the lights in my office so I could feel the bright cheeriness return to my soul.
I mean, I often have to do that even when I'm not watching Sleepy Hollow, but that's neither here nor there. John Mills, Kessel Junkie himself. Yeah. Mm-hmm. How are you doing? How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling weird because I'm a little bit embarrassed that I tried for this to memorize and rehearse all of Christopher Walken's lines from Sleepy Hollow, and I just can't get them. I miss a couple of lines here and there, and it screws up the flow, and I never know whether it's ha or her. I'm trying to find that balance right there.
Well, I think the one that you always forget is shh.
Yes, that's true. That one is difficult. I'm a loud person.
Have you tried wearing a prosthetic teeth? Maybe it'll help enunciate properly.
Yeah, I was going to put it in order with you, Darren, so that you could laser cut some of those teeth for me. So that
I don't think you want anything I laser in your mouth. That's not going to work.
Oh, what? We should do kind of since you mentioned a laser cutting thing, Darren, pimp your store.
Pew pew lasers and such. I have a small Etsy store that I enjoy making things, and currently my main product is a set of laser acrylic chips that they're inspired from Star Trek, so isolinear chips, and I have a variety of bases that they can fit in, little block bases, kind of a Picard-esque. You could see it, maybe it would jostle when he slammed the table. Not good enough. And a few that are lit, then that light up the chips really well. So they've been a nice little side gig. I like to say, not bill money, but project money, which helps me make other things. So thank you very much. So they can go to etsy.com and search Dr. Sci-Fi, or go to my website, drsci-fi.com, and there are links there.
Awesome.
And everybody should go do that right now.
Yes.
Don't even finish
I'll
the
look
episode.
for your
Just go
order.
right now.
I'll look for your order, Tristan. I'll be waiting.
All right. So, Sleepy Hollow. So, okay. I famously, at the beginning of this journey in House of Burton, said that I absolutely love 90s Burton. And
how's that going?
I've hinted here and there that I've been drastically wrong and made a huge
Let's go
mistake.
to the board. No, I'm just kidding.
But this one, Sleepy Hollow, I loved and love this film. I truly do. And when I first saw this, I'm pretty sure I saw this in the theater, I was in awe of it. I loved the cinematography. I love the acting. I thought the practical effects and the CGI was phenomenal. I loved the characterization that Johnny Depp did. I loved so much about it. I wanted to see this in theater. I wanted to be quote unquote scared. I wanted to feel all those things on the big screen, and I was not disappointed. When this came out on video, I immediately went to Blockbuster and picked it up. And actually, I think I bought it at Blockbuster because I was just there, and I didn't go to Best Buy or anything like that. I was just nope, it's here. I'm overpaying for it. I'm just picking this up. And I showed it to every person I could. If I went over to a friend's house, I said, do you want to watch Sleepy Hollow? That's the kind. I was for some reason an evangelist for this movie.
Tristan, it's March 30th. Why are we watching Sleepy Hollow?
Oh no, that's the thing. It was not even Halloween when I did this. It was March 30th. I was we're gonna watch this. But I do try to watch this every year if I can around Halloween. This is one of those movies I pull out from the shelf, the proverbial shelf, and watch every single Halloween. I didn't get to in 2021 because I have two kids now, but I was able. I was very happy that I was able to watch it in January.
There you go.
And John, when was the first time you saw this film?
Oh, in the theater. In the theater. I was dating a girl named Erin at the time. Tumultuous relationship, really not good for either one of us. But we did love to go to the movies. And 1999, of course, was a big, that's a banner year for film. In a lot of respects. Matrix Episode 1, Sleepy Hollow was up there.
Galaxy Quest.
Yeah, but I mean, Sleepy Hollow was behind Episode 1, probably my most anticipated of that year. I was very excited for it. It looked really just right up my alley. And I was thrilled because it looked like Burton finally getting back to what he excels at, which is mood and design. And saw it in the movie theater, bought it very quickly after it was released. And I'm pretty sure it was one of the first DVDs I would have owned. And I have a tremendous soft spot for this movie. I don't think I've ever regarded it as perfect, but I have always regarded it as something I love because it does a great job of exactly what Burton set out to do, which is evoke those old Hammer horror films. And I was a big fan of the Hammer horror films growing up. My brother had a picture book about the Hammer horror films that he had inherited from like our uncle or something. And not that my uncle died, but my uncle was done with it and gave it to him. And I used to sit in our basement and I would just leaf through this thing, these horrifying images of Christopher Lee as Dracula and as Frankenstein and looking at all of this stuff. And it just stuck with me. And this movie achieved what Burton wanted to do with Ed Wood visually, which was evoke a certain filming style without being derivative. It's still a Tim Burton movie, but it evokes those things that were huge influences on him. And so that's why I still, to this day, have a tremendous soft spot for it.
And that's really well put. I think that's spot on. Now, you mentioned 1999 being a banner year in film. For those of you who don't know, I just looked it up. Holy crap. Like, I'm just going to start rattling off some of this. So we have The Iron Giant, American Pie, Varsity Blues, Notting Hill, The Talented Mr. Ripley, October Sky, Sixth Sense, She's All That, Any Given Sunday, Galaxy Quest, 13th Warrior, World Is Not Enough, Man in the Moon, Thomas Crown Affair, Bone Collector, American Beauty, The Insider, Big Daddy, 10 Things I Hate About You, Girl Interrupted, Blast from the Past, Boondock Saints, Virgin Suicides, Fight Club, Magnolia, Matrix, Bicentennial Man, Cruel Intentions, The Mummy, and The Green Mile.
Yeah.
Holy hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were a lot of really good movies that year. I would say there's supposed to be some book that talks about 99 as the greatest year in cinema history or something like that. And I would say that definitely of the 1990s, 99, like that decade went out on a tremendously high note. And it's interesting because 89, I remember as a really good year for film, but I'm sure I just remembered as a good year for film because it's the year that Batman came out.
Right.
But yeah, I think 99 unequivocally has a ton of, did Office Space come out in 99 or 2000? But it was right around,
Office Space did too.
Yeah.
Oh, and Toy Story 2 came out.
Yeah. So, 99 was a hell of a year for film.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Darren, what were you doing in 99 after you saw episode 1?
Episode 1 and Galaxy Quest back to back. I actually, for the first time, saw Sleepy Hollow last year. My wife and I choose to watch it. So we had seen the Disney Sleepy Hollow many times with our kids, the one that's narrated by Bing Crosby, and really enjoyed that. And then we thought, like, okay, well, we like scary movies, but we like thrillers more. So we're not into like gore or like really hard, heavy stuff. So we wanted to try Sleepy Hollow. We're like, okay, we think that could work for that kind of genre. So we sat down and watched it, and we weren't doing a 90s retrospective at all. But we did enjoy it. It was enough. I don't think we watched it this year, but that was the first time I saw it, was with her together some night after the kids had been put down.
Oh,
Cool.
all right. Yeah,
Cool.
I'm with you on that one. Like I'm when it comes to horror and thriller, like I am much more of a thriller person. Like give me a thriller and I'll be much more entertained than if you just throw a horror at me. There's very few horror films that I enjoy. I like some of the classics, but I never like gore ever. Like I just don't get into it. I don't find it entertaining. But for some reason with Sleepy Hollow, I don't even consider this a horror film.
No.
I don't know why. Like, do you guys consider this a horror film? Like, John, what do you think about this? Like, is this a horror film? Is it just an action film? Is it fantasy? How do you view it?
In all honesty, putting me on the spot here, I hadn't really thought about it, but you're right. This isn't really a horror film. I would say it's more of a fairy tale than a horror film, which I don't know if that's fit. I've never read the original story that this is, loosely based on. I have every intention to. I actually bought it and put it on my bookshelf last year because I said, you know what? Why have I not read this hallmark of American literature from the person who dubbed New York City Gotham, which led to Batman being based in Gotham? I feel like I owe Washington Irving a great deal of gratitude. But no, I would say fairy tale is what I would put this in.
I like that. I'd say like fairy tale with an edge.
Yeah, well, because you get the immersion. I mean, we'll get into the look of this film, but it is a fairy tale. I mean, they use all the smoke in the UK they had, pumped into this area. But it's creating a world for sure. It's this edge of reality. Like you're not quite. It's grounded enough with it's a town and people and they have jobs and lives, but something is off. And that's where our story begins.
You mentioned the town, you mentioned evoking the mood. And what I find fascinating is when I was looking up some stuff, after watching it, it's very obviously it's shot on a set. It's shot on the same, in the same studios that episode 1 was filmed in. So like Ian McDiarmid was like, okay, go to sleep as Palpatine, wake up as this dude. And it's interesting because they noted that they spent a month filming in a real outdoor set, for the outdoor stuff. And looking at the balance of footage, I think that's such a testament to how much harder it is to film in an uncontrolled natural environment than in a studio environment. Because if they spent a month filming on those outdoor locations and they're in there for not the majority of the film, it's such a testament to how tough it is to do those setups and reset and keep going and do all those complex things that you have to do, which it's interesting because one of the offhand comments I made watching it this time was, yes, the indoor sets, they're very evocative. It's really cool to look at. But at the same time, something happened in the digital filming revolution that put this seed in my brain of, I now look at these things as it's so environmentally bad making this, we're going to take outdoors and we're going to put it indoors. It's like, well, shouldn't you just film outdoors if everything's going to be outdoors for the tree? You could build the tree outside and stuff like that. It's just it's an odd sort of thought that floats around in there.
I don't understand that. What do you mean?
Well,
expand on that.
It's the environmental impact of making film versus shooting in a natural environment where you haven't had to create a metal tree that's going to be thrown in a landfill.
Well, I mean, even if you
create
all
of
the
film
tree,
is creation.
No, absolutely. But and I'm not saying that they did anything wrong or abnormal. I'm saying that it's just knowing now how digital set extensions are and how much they put into it, and you have the volume now for the Lucasfilm productions and stuff like that. I think it just has put me in a different mindset to look at it and say, all of those leaves on the ground, all of those trees, not just the big tree that the horseman lives in, but everything in that is artificially created inside an environment destined for a landfill. Whereas I would think you could go and film in the woods somewhere and do the majority of your filming outside as opposed to inside. But then you give up a large amount of control with the lighting and the mood and everything like that.
One thing that I really liked about the sets is that it gave it that otherworldly feel. And I think that they really used it well. And I think Lubeski, the cinematographer, did a really great job of making, like, utilizing light and shadow and fog to make it feel like these sets went on for much further than they actually did. And it really, I think it really added to the flavor of the story to when they went into the Western woods, that it felt like you were kind of transported into another world, and it felt like old style filmmaking, that where you'd film so much on a set. Like it's so funny, like when you go back to the 40s, 50s, and 60s, like how many movies were all on set. And like if you're going to go back to those Hammer productions, that's one way to really hit it home. And I think they did a really great job of balancing, like you mentioned, like shooting a month on the exteriors. I think they did a really great job of making it feel like there was something otherworldly about the Western woods, but it still was visually congruent with the actual exteriors, like the real world stuff. And that's one thing I really applaud them for, with how they built in what they did. Like a lot of the actors said that when they walked on set in studio, that it felt like they were walking through Tim Burton's mind. And I thought, I was like, what a perfect encapsulation of it. And also, side note, you mentioned Ian McDiarmid and everything like that. There are 3 dark lords of the Sith in this movie. I think that's so funny.
Well, there's Ray Park played the Headless Horseman. He was one of the stunt doubles. And then Ian McDiarmid, obviously, Darth Sidious. Who was the third that was in
Christopher Lee.
Oh my gosh, that's right. I forgot in the beginning. And he actually has one of my favorite parts of the movie. I totally forgot about Christopher Lee while we're talking about it. Poor Lord Tyrannus. And he, but I always loved that shot of when he just points straight out and says, "It is you who are on trial, Ichabod Crane." I'm like, that is such a great tone setter right there, for the movie. But yeah, you're right. 3 total. My goodness.
That was the interesting thing for me watching it last year, because again, I've seen these actors in many other things before seeing them in this older movie. So I'm all like, oh, there's Lord Sidious, and there's there's Martin again, because he keeps popping up in all these movies. Yeah, Dumbledore was cool because I hadn't seen him in anything beyond the Harry Potter films. Christopher Walken, Christina Ricci. We have Casper Van Dam, is it?
Casper Van Dien.
Casper Van Dien.
Casper Van Dien, the hero of Starship Troopers.
I wanted to know more. So, but anyway, that was always, and I'm sure this probably happened to you guys sometimes when you watch a movie that took place or was made like 20 years ago, and now you recognize all those actors, but they weren't nearly as big back then because their body of work hadn't happened yet. Not that a lot of these actors were still big in the 90s. I'm not saying that, but
yeah, because Michael Gambon, I think the first film I ever saw him in was actually in The Insider, when he played one of the skeezy cigarette company reps on trial, and he was in that. He was one of the cigarette company execs.
First time I saw him was in Toys with Robin Williams.
Oh my gosh, I'd forgotten he was in. Yes, no, now I see him in Toys. Yes, you're right. I saw him in Toys before I saw him in that. Man, Toys is a weird movie, man. That is a really weird. I
love
movie.
Toys so much. No, I like you. You're the only guys that I know who's actually knows of its existence. Like
I saw
was
it in the
obsessed
movie
with
theater.
that movie as a kid.
You mean the movie that feels like the entire thing is a MTV video? Because it kind of does. Like, it's like, what's going on in this scene? Well, I don't know.
I would have gone with a really intriguing drug trip, honestly. But that's
no,
not
I totally get what you're
Hollow.
saying there. It's like a Phil Collins video.
I mean, with Toys, I feel like there was some sort of 20-minute preamble I missed.
Speaking of which, did you feel like this was enough of an introduction to the character of Ichabod Crane? Like, do you feel like we know who he was enough? Do we know, like, that scene in the courthouse and everything like that? Was that enough, or did it feel like we were just kind of throwing him to the wolves in Sleepy Hollow and we didn't know who this person was? Like Darren, how do you feel?
No, I think we knew enough about him. It's funny. It makes me think in a parallel way, like Hot Fuzz, where we see the lead character, the policeman, really quickly established in this like quick cuts of like who he is, but the majority of the story is him in this sleepy little town and the mystery that unfolds, and that's where the similarities end between the two characters. But no, I felt we knew enough. And I also felt like this was meant to be a Burton interpretation. I mean, because they delve into like the scientific method, and he's got this weird, microscope case thing. And I'm like, okay, it's kind of like the modern takes on Sherlock Holmes, where they kind of push a bit on, it's not going to be straight out of the book. It's going to have a bit of flair there. So, but once you're hooked in, it makes sense. So I didn't feel like I was missing some part of his backstory, because this is the inciting incident of his life, is this trip. So, the past doesn't matter as much.
I would actually go another length, and I think that the opening is reminiscent of Coppola's Dracula, where the preamble with Martin Landau is interesting enough and sets a tone for sure. But I go back and forth in my brain as to whether the stronger and moodier opening is opening up in old-timey New York and encountering Ichabod first, poking at the body, getting a sense for him, establishing him as the primary, and then you could have, as he's piecing things together, see through his mind's eye what happened, on that carriage ride before he was sent to Sleepy Hollow. Because I think it actually is much more interesting because, or it could be a much more interesting opening because you establish him, I'm a man of science. I don't believe in these hocus pocus nonsense thingies. And the judge saying, oh, maybe you've heard of this thing going on in Sleepy Hollow, and we as an audience still haven't seen anything. We're like, oh, okay, yeah, all right, that's the name of the movie. This is where we're going. And then
that's the name of the movie.
Right,
he said the name of the movie. It's got to be a thing.
But it would. I think it might have flowed better if they'd made that choice.
I think there's something to that. I think that's a really strong argument, because so much of the movie, not all of it, so much of the movie is seen through the perspective of Crane. And I think you can think of very few scenes where he's not the protagonist of the scene. I think when we see the family slaughtered, is that the only scene where Ichabod Crane's not involved? And Crane is involved afterwards.
I mean, there's a lot of things with the Headless Horseman where he's not around, where he's doing terrible things. But I think you're right. The bulk of the scenes he is through his eyes, very much so.
Now, in terms of other cuts I might have made to the story at the script level, I do think it's necessary to have the conversation about his flashbacks to childhood. Which was Burton's excuse to get his girlfriend Lisa Marie into the movie, which doesn't take anything
show up
away.
In the next one. She doesn't show up in anymore. That's weird. I wonder why.
So strange. I don't know.
Yeah,
something happened.
Yeah.
I don't know. Something happened along the way. But that doesn't take anything away from her or her skills as an actress or anything like that. I'm not, but I really do think that his whole flashback thing, this, when I was a child, I suppressed a memory of my puritanical witch hunting father somehow married a witch, which produced me, and then he killed my mom. And it seems as forced as when Burton went back and rewrote 1989's Batman to say, it would be neat if Jack Napier killed Batman's parents.
Let it go, John.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just saying it has. I know that Andrew Walker writes a really mean script, really good scripts, and this feels like something where maybe this was a little forced.
No, you're right. You're right. I think that could have been cut out, and nothing really would have been lost in the film. I mean, I feel like have him have a like maybe one nightmare of something happening, and then we get a little backstory where, like where he still has that conversation with Christina Ricci, like that you're talking about, where he says it's like, yeah, my father was a Bible thumper, a tyrant, and like my mother was, had her head in the clouds and whatnot, and like, I don't know, it's some sort of connection with witchcraft. I'm not quite sure, but I don't think we needed as many as we did.
I think it would actually make his backstory even more poignant, because he refers to his mother as an innocent. And if he says she's an innocent and we don't have footage of her, basically
levitating,
conducting, witchcraft, then that's even more horrifying, because we know full well that we'll contextualize it and say, oh my gosh, she was accused of something that she wasn't doing, which is even worse than, not that what happened to her wasn't bad. I still question why a room like that was there.
In the church.
Yeah, it seems an odd choice.
Yeah. Now, Darren, what did you think about Johnny Depp's performance? I mean, I feel like in every movie we've seen of his, he's given a different kind of character, a different kind of voice. How did you feel about his portrayal of Ichabod Crane? Do you feel like it deviated too much from the original tellings of what we've seen of Ichabod, or did you think it gave a nice flair to it? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but how did you feel?
No, I enjoyed it. Again, it's Johnny Depp's third outing with Tim Burton. And I mean, there's really not much to overshadow from the only version I'd seen, which again was the Disney version, because Ichabod barely speaks in that. Like, he has almost no personality, because the majority of the talking is done by the narrator, who isn't speaking in Ichabod's voice, but more telling the events of the story. So there's not much of he's just afraid. He's just afraid of everything. He's super superstitious. And in this one, I liked the portrayal, and this is maybe more on the character than the portrayal, but again, the scientific method and weird, kinetoscopes, it kind of took me out of it a little bit. It not that you can't put that in your movie and make it make sense. It just was kind of like, why? Like, why is that? Is that some hidden aspect of this character that's supposed to make it make sense? Are we going for this man of science versus man of faith, trope, which instead was more, I think, back in that period of time, it's more of the, just everyday person and a superstitious person is more of what the character had been before. And they were kind of just reframing that. But his performance aside, I really liked it. I think, again, we spend so much time with him and he commands every scene. So I think he was a great choice for this. I mean, we all joke about the Tim Burton Johnny Depp, like it's in, every movie is, if Helena Bonham Carter had been here, then we would have put her in it as well. Like, she would have fit right in. But
yeah,
what do you think, John?
Well, I mean, if it was Helena Bonham Carter, she would have had Miranda Richardson's role, hands down, no question. And I think that the performances are pretty strong here. I think Depp does fine. It's a fun role. It's his most, for lack of a better term, I don't want to use the word normal, but the most everyday.
Pre Pirates of the Caribbean.
Well, it's his most everyday sort of role that I can think of him in. Ed
with
Wood.
Burton, you mean?
Yeah, with Burton. Yes, with Burton. And I think that it's interesting, because I do think it winds up rooting the rest of the story. Not having him be zany lets the rest of the story breathe a lot better. You wind up, I think, pondering if he had peeled it back a little bit in one or two choices in other movies, if maybe it would have played better. Because here, when you need a central character and a central performance that isn't going to be too showy, it has its quirks, but it's not an attention getter. It plays off and allows the other roles to get the attention. So, I think that's that's good. Christina Ricci, I think, was an interesting choice. And I think she's a great actress. I don't see anything in her performance that makes me say nobody else could have played it this way or played it this well.
I feel like she did kind of poor, honestly.
Really?
I was really surprised at her performance in this movie, because I always felt like it felt like a performance where she just read the script right before they started filming. Like, so much of her delivery was stilted and off. I didn't quite. I don't feel like she understood the assignment. I don't know how to phrase it. She just. Yeah, I mean, the role was obviously intended for Winona Ryder. But with Ricci, I like Ricci. She's done some really great stuff, but for some reason, I always felt like she phoned it in with this one.
I don't think she phoned it in. I think she's playing. She's making choices. And the director, Burton, is putting her on that path. He's getting what he wants. I think that maybe what it is, in all honesty, is that you have an actress who is consistently put in an environment where you have these old school, long-time character actor legends, from Michael Gambon to Michael Goff she's surrounded by these very relaxed, these old pros where it's so second nature to them, and they're speaking in their natural accents that she had. I think that's one of the things, because I think the scenes where it's just her in depth, she seems much more natural. And I think that when she's in those, it's a natural sort of thing. That's why we always heap praise on actors and actresses who wind up with the old school talent, and they hold their, quote, we have that phrase, quote unquote, hold your own. That's why it's always called to the forefront in those instances, is because it's, I would argue, still the exception, not the rule. Because you're in the presence of just people who have literal decades of experience and have played these sorts of roles. They don't even need to sit down and have like a meeting necessarily with Burton. They can read the script and like, oh yeah, this is like the one I did back in 1972. Sure. I got it.
One thing that I really appreciated about Depp's performance was how he hit certain words and the moments that he had, where he had very funny moments, but like you said, John, earlier, he wasn't being zany. And I think that's one thing I really appreciate about this movie, is that it was laugh out loud funny without being distracting. Like, it's not quippy. It's not a Marvel film. It's not a movie that like someone went through and injected more humor. It didn't feel like a studio note. Right. Like they're like I think Ichabod faints 5 times in this film, and it's always funny. And the way that he hits the line "decapitated," as he's doing the speech at the beginning, recapping all of the murders that already happened. It just I lose it every single time. And like when he puts young Mazbeth in front of him as he goes into the crone's house.
Yes, right. Yeah.
It's just stuff like that. It doesn't insist upon itself, but it's still hilarious. And I also thought Mark Pickering as young Mazbeth did a really great job. And he's not McLovin, but yet I feel like he did such a great job anyway.
Yes, he did do a great job. Is anybody really McLovin though? I mean, I think the McLovin is the ones we encounter along the way, to be honest with you.
Are you really not going to explain that in something?
Okay, look. Okay, mister, send me a text where it's like, I'm going to spare you the embarrassment of making this mistake, but let's just bring it on out into the... Okay, I'm watching the movie, and I see this kid up there, and I had recently seen Superbad for the first time last year. The very first time in my life. And he walks on screen, and my initial reaction is, oh, that must be a young Superbad. Yeah, okay. And I sent a text to Tristan, and I'm like, hey, Superbad's or McLovin is in it. And he sends me a text later saying, that's not, whatever. And I'm like, Hey, you said you were going to run cover for me, not embarrass me here. Now you're throwing me out there.
It's true. It's true. I'm a hypocrite on that one. I just loved it so much because you were so excited. You're just like, oh, it's so great that McLovin's in this.
Okay, hold on. I think you're reading excited into the text messages there. You bring a little baggage into that. But as I responded to you when we were first settling this, I said he's McLovin if I say he's McLovin. That's what I said in response. But my apologies to Mr. Pickering. I think he actually does a really good job as young Mazbeth in this. I really do. He walked on screen and I just saw the way he walked and the way he sounded. I was like, oh, it must be. And it was wrong. So
it always makes me really happy when young Mazbeth is with Johnny Depp and Christina Ricci at the end. Like they all went to New York together. I really, really like that. That warms my cockles.
Yeah, I know that there was somebody who, because the movie is in 1899, right? And there was I'm trying to remember specifically what it was, but there was somebody I knew from New York who, when they walk up and they're like, they say, the Bronx is up, the Bowery is down. And, that's part of the line. And the person stared at the screen and said, technically where they're standing, the Bronx is to the right, not up. Or something like that. I have no idea. I'm sure there's somebody from New York listening that's like, no, it's absolutely accurate. But, I tried to say at the time, I said, it's the kid's first time in town. He's just trying to give him an offhand thing. But I can't imagine that it's an actual mistake. But it's a memory that I've treasured because that was, it was one of those moments where the first thought in my mind was, you just watch this whole thing and that's the takeaway. That's the takeaway right there, is that line. Okay, sure. That's fine.
It's actually the Bronx is up and the Battery's down.
The Battery's down, right? Yeah. Something.
And it's
like
a line from New York, New York.
Yeah. Well, it's, I don't know what to tell you, but it's because they were the direction they were walking or anything like that. The person is not available to me for comment at this point. So
Darren, what was something like, since you've seen it more like for the first time more recently than John and I, what was something that stuck out to you? Like, did it feel like, let me rephrase. Did this feel like a product of 1999? Did this feel like a 90s film, or did it feel timeless? Like how do you feel? Like, did it feel like it was dated or universal or somewhere in between?
I would say both, because it feels timeless in the fact that being a 90s movie, it is still kind of massive amounts of special effects. So a lot of stuff is still practical, a lot of atmosphere. And again, we talked at the beginning of, framing it in this horror movie-esque way. And part of that is the limitations of shooting on set, the limitations of shooting in the field. And so this doesn't feel like a modern movie as far as like the camera's not sweeping and flowing. Like the camera is, I thought I read somewhere that he only used wide lenses.
There's a lot of wide,
a lot of wide. Yeah. So that's a constraint. And I know that, I know there were special effects used, especially for the Horsemen and a lot of that, but beyond that, it's very practical. And, really mid to late 90s is kind of that last hurrah, or not hurrah, that's a negative, but that last time when you could see a movie and know that the majority of it is done by practical means, just because that's all there was. Yes, we're in a post-Jurassic Park world at this point, but it's not at all like today where the choices of shots and the choices of moving the camera are so much broader. So it's just that simpler 90s time, which I think works. So in that way, it does feel 90s, but that's not a bad thing. It just gives it a timelessness because of it.
Yeah. Well put. Now, John, how did you feel about the color palette, or lack
White
thereof,
and black and gray?
I do know that they were actually discussing early on shooting the film in black and white, and they decided against it. And I think it was a good decision to decide against that, specifically because I think that all of the production design, the costume choices, the lighting, everything is so well executed as to have a natural desaturation. This is a testament to doing it in camera, I guess you could say, instead of going after the fact and draining color or anything like that. It's right there. It looks natural, and your eye accepts it a lot easier than it can in other circumstances. And you wind up, when you have the moments where they have the goof and by goof I mean the gag, where like the blood spurts on his eye or something like that, the red really jumps out at you. And as much as I think that the flashback subplot is unnecessary, Lisa Marie is always very much in color and pops out of there very much. And I think it's
sorry,
really.
I laughed thinking about her outfit, but no, please continue.
Well, yes. But anyway, so I think basically what it does is it allows them to use color very effectively in the scenes where that they lean into it, like where the horseman is coming to attack the family. You have that little glow light, the little moviola thing, basically, and
with the candle and the shadows.
And because of that yellow is really cool and foreboding and creepy and really sets a tone. And it's so I think that they did a really, really good job with all of those things.
It kind of gives me the Village vibes as far as like the color, and I mean that film used, because that's supposedly set, in this older time, and again, use of color. I mean that's the main thing I'm trying to make, is that use of color, and because you could also look at it as they desaturated it because they still wanted it to be black and white. They just couldn't, and so they strip a lot of the color out. But that's kind of the natural, what we expect from that era now. Just like you hear certain music cues whenever you go to Africa, and you hear certain things when it's a film mantra where it's like, East Coast, Puritan era, like, it's gonna look like this.
I know,
no
everyone
colors.
was devoid of color back then. I mean,
color hadn't been invented yet, so
a lot of historians don't want to talk about it. But I was watching an episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine last night, and Nine-Nine, and they're at a private airfield, and they get on a private jet, and it's normal color palette, and they leave. And then immediately, they're in the air, and then they come back. They're landing in Miami, and it looks like the same exact private airfield. Like they were hoping that no one would notice, but the orange tint was cranked to the max.
yeah. CSI Miami is the orange one.
Yep. And they're like, they're in Miami now.
Yeah,
because that's Miami's just orange when you get there.
Well, they took off to the left and they landed on the right. Totally different airport.
Yeah.
Now with Sleepy Hollow, they shot with a filter that removed a lot of the blue colors, and so when they did that, they had the blood had to be a bright orange in order for it to show up as red on the film. And I always thought that was really fascinating. I wish I could have seen some behind the scenes shots of like with normal photography without a filter, so to see like orange
Casper Van Dyne's in bright orange alien blood, and it's like, nope, looks like regular blood.
Well, I think that's interesting because that harkens back to us when we watched The Crow, where they were using certain filters and they couldn't use certain smoke generators because it was too blue. Because remember, they were desaturating and then they resaturated in the post-production process. So that's really, really interesting, actually, because it would explain why I think it would explain why it's so monochromatic, but at the same time, it's not bland.
Right.
Everything is still very, very distinct, even though it's as monochromatic as they could make it. So I mean, the thing is, I think the cinematography in this is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And it still blows my mind that Burton decided to work with this director of photography because of his work on Great Expectations with Ethan Hawke and Gwyneth Paltrow. And
that's a great movie. I love that movie.
You know what? I saw that for the first time not so many years ago because it was part of a movie challenge that I had with a friend where we were trading movies back and forth we hadn't seen before. And yes, that movie, you know, I would say that movie is a lot like this movie where it's like, I love it, even though my rational brain is like, no, you don't. But my heart loves it. So
now, okay, so I did mention him before, but Emmanuel Lubezki is the one who shot and photographed this film. And I just want to give some highlights because if you don't know the name, you should, because you definitely know his work. And I'm talking to the audience. So he did The Birdcage, Meet Joe Black, You Tu Mama Tambien, Ali, Series of Unfortunate Events, The New World, Children of Men, Tree of Life, To the Wonder, Gravity, Birdman, Knight of Cups, The Revenant, and an upcoming David O. Russell picture. So, like, holy crap. You know, I also did I mention Gravity? He did Gravity. And it just, what a talent. I mean, the stuff that he did on Revenant alone should put him in the Hall of Fame. I know he got an Oscar for it, or at least he should have.
Yeah, he won for Gravity. He won for Birdman, and then he won for The Revenant. So, he's pretty good. It's pretty good. You know,
he won 3 years in a row.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Pretty
he drops the mic and just walks away. It's like,
yeah, we'd like to hire you for our new film. How much money do you have? I mean, the thing is, actually, if you look through, I mean, Tree of Life. Have you guys ever seen Tree of Life? That's a beautifully shot film.
Come on.
It
Come
really
on.
is. It's a beautiful.
Come on.
Listen, hey. I had a friend at the time when I said I loved the movie Tree of Life, said that it was a pretentious piece of garbage as if a film student had failed their final exam. And I had a lot of nerve saying I loved it. And I was like, well, honesty is not a shortcoming for you. That's a positive. I'm glad we can openly communicate like this. You think people react badly to a Star Trek or a Star Wars movie? Boy, getting a conversation about Tree of Life, that one's interesting. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll defend Terrence Malick in Until I Die.
Yeah.
So, was there anything? And this question is for both of you. Before we round third, is there anything that just blatantly did not work? Now, John, you talked a little bit about things that you think could have been trimmed or tightened or anything like that. Is there anything where you're just like, no, this shouldn't have happened, or this needed to be restructured, or this needed to be changed? What comes to mind when I say that? And Darren, I'm going to ask you the same question.
Honestly, nothing. This is one where, again, I'm not even going to qualify it with the usual. I know it's not a perfect film, but no, there's nothing in here that's so egregious. I see it and I say, what were you thinking? There are things where I obviously have opinions. This could have been better. I would have cut this, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that's one of the reasons why I have such an affection for this film is even it's what you could classify as its choices that aren't the best still aren't bad. Like, I get it. I understand why that choice was made. And that, I think, is why it remains an enjoyable movie for me.
Darren?
Kind of like I mentioned before, I think Ichabod's case and gadgets, I didn't need them. I mean, he could have just had a case with a period microscope, like just straight out of that time, and that was it. But it felt it suffers from it doesn't actually do anything syndrome. Like, he's like adjusting little things, and I'm like, but I don't believe that this technology does anything. Like, you're just fiddling with a prop, and it feels like that. It doesn't actually feel real, and thus it kind of takes me out of it. Like, it made me feel like it was something that would be in the like Enola Holmes movie, where it's like we got to throw a curve and make it, she's sciencey. So, oh, look, she's got this crazy kit. It's like, I buy that more with a Sherlock Holmes type deal, but even with him, it was more his brain and his mental capacity. So yeah, that kind of took me out. And it's used sparingly. It's not like he's, make way, give me the blood sample, let me stick it in my contraption. But it didn't do anything for me. I could have definitely done without of it. And I think I don't know if it was trying to bring a aspect to the character, that he's a tinkerer, that he's I made these myself. It's like, okay, you're an inventor. I didn't need that in your story. Like that didn't do anything for me.
That's interesting. I mean, I can't contradict anything you're saying, but it definitely didn't have that effect on me. I thought it added to his eccentricities. I thought it made him it immediately established him as a man of science in a world where it's not valued as much, like where it's still steeped in superstition. And so you like, granted, they could have done that in different ways. They could have done it in much more subtler ways.
Yeah.
And so, I
agree on that
that
aspect, but I would have gone a different way. Maybe like he writes everything down in meticulous notes or something like that. And so the scientific method is the method. But I think, again, the technology didn't do anything. Like I could tell that it was a prop. And I think if it had been more subtle, then it might have not been as, I mean, again, I'm nitpicking this one tiny thing, but that's how I felt.
No, I get it. I think one thing I always really, I know I shouldn't admit this, but I always related to Ichabod Crane a lot, at least the Johnny Depp's performance. I love how he's eccentric. He's a man of science and he's squeamish. And I just, for some reason, I related way too much with this character.
I actually had a friend of mine, I was talking about revisiting this, and he made some comment where he said it's the legendary Joey that I've referenced many, many times. And he said, oh, yeah, doesn't he does autopsies, but then he's scared of a spider and he jumps up on his chair. And I said, now hold on a second. I'm a pretty tough guy. I like to think. If you show me a spider that big crawling in my room, there's a legendary evening. I hate spiders. Okay. I'm borderline just absolutely paralyzed by them. And, like there's a legendary instance many years ago where I had to scream for my wife at 2:00 in the morning to come down and save me from the big nasty spider. Because I'll tell you, man, though, this was a nasty, nasty spider. It was awful. Like I have nightmares about this thing still to this day. It was ginormous and it was agile. But anyway, all that to say, I too have done rough and tumble things, but you show me a spider scurrying across, I'm going to jump up on a chair and be like, kill it, get rid of it.
Oh, absolutely. And apparently that was like, I think thought up on the day. Like that wasn't originally in the script, like the whole spider thing. Like there was a guy with bugs for some reason, and because of other things in the movie, and they're like, let's just do this. This is fun.
But that's really clever too, because if that was improvised, it was brilliant because it's the perfect excuse for them to move the bed and find the protection against the evil eye. Like it's absolutely perfect. And so you couldn't have asked for a better improvisation that lends itself to the film.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think it's time to get into the rating structure, the stars, because we're hitting the hour mark real soon. And so, John, I want to know how many spiders are you giving this film?
No, not spiders.
Oh, okay. Excuse me.
Spiders.
How many heads? How many decapitated heads are
that
you
I can live
film?
with? Spiders,
Yeah.
no. Decapitated heads, yes.
I'm with you on that one.
I gotta be honest. There's a part of me that doesn't want to give it this, but I'm giving it a solid 4 because this is a movie I can put on at fall, which doesn't really exist where I live. But that time of year, I could sit down, I could put this on, I could watch this just straight through without without pausing and enjoy it. So this is a solid 4 from me.
Darren, how many heads are you giving this one?
I'm gonna give it a 3. I think it's solid in the middle there. I mean, I gave Mars Attacks a 3 as well. It's an enjoyable Burton film. Nothing that I feel like inclined to watch it over and over, but definitely one of his great pieces, I think. And compared to some of the last films we've been covering in the 90s. And like we've said before, when we compared a lot of his works that were animated and had much more of a stylized look, and it's like, you got to lean into that, buddy. Like that's your bread and butter. And he definitely does that here.
All right, so 4 from John and 3 from Darren. From me, I'm giving it a solid 4. Like, I kind of want to give it a 4.5 because I love this movie so much, but I'm able to separate my love from quality. And this movie, like I said, is a solid 4. Like, unironically, not just listening to my heart, not my head, solid 4. I think this is a great movie. It's great tone, great cinematography, great characterization, great practical effects and action. There's a few things that I think could have been trimmed here or there. Some elements that I don't think were needed, but it didn't detract from the overall enjoyment of it. And I think this is so much fun, and I will continue to watch this every year. There's very few movies that I watch every single year, but this is one of them. So it's a solid 4 from me. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. Before you tune out, before you stop the podcast, you got to hear what we're going to do next. And I think all 3 of us are extremely excited. And this may not be a name that you expect from us or expect us to talk about, but it's a name that you should know because you definitely know his movies. John, who are we doing next?
We are going to enter the House of McTiernan, focusing on the works of John McTiernan in the 1990s. And I am thrilled that we're going to do it because, like you said, that's a name that does not get tossed around very much, but he had such an impact on how we see action films. Like he had his finger on the pulse and moved along the direction of action film through the 1990s, the same way that Peckinpah changed everything, the same way that the Wild Bunch changed everything. Action movies changed with John McTiernan.
And so what we're doing next week is we're starting with 1990, The Hunt for Red October.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.